We've got a great show today. Hey, big news this week. We've got Arrow Electronics acquired Cross Telecom, our very own Cross Telecom. But I've got some pretty amazing guests coming up on the show, so we're going to save that for later on. But the other technology news that I want to talk about is, in April, Avaya announced the release of the what they call the Avaya Aura Solutions for Midsize Enterprise, or Midsize Enterprise for short, or ME for even shorter. But this is a really cool product because it really takes and embraces some of the technologies that we've been talking about for quite a while, mostly virtualization. Back in the old days, you'd have Avaya, Lucent, AT&T, go back as far as you want and take any of those major manufacturers. They never had a problem scaling big. Going huge was never their issue. It was always going small that was the issue. Well, over the time, with core communications and voice, telephony kind of stuff, they solved that. Back in the day, there was the ProLogics, and we have these nice small gateways now, the G430, we had the G250, so it allowed me to take enterprise class features down to a smaller office. But now that we're getting into applications and we're getting into, today's system, a complete system, if you want all the bells and whistles, you're talking session manager, you're talking system manager, you're talking AES servers, you're talking, you've got various utility servers. There's all kinds of things that you end up needing. Well, and that's great when you're a huge organization. You're kind of used to having, multiple devices, and the modularity of that allows you to scale. But what about all of a sudden when you want to shrink down to a smaller office? Maybe an office of 500 people. Which a lot of people would say probably isn't even that small or big of an office, right? Well, what Avaya has done with the midsize enterprise is they've taken all the very key servers and they have put it on a single server. Okay, so they're using virtualization. Avaya calls that system platform. We've talked about it quite a bit on the show. It's a front end basically for Zen, which is an open source virtualization platform. And they've taken a number of servers, kind of all the core ones, and put it all on that one box. It's designed to go up to about 1,000 users. So again, all the ones we talked about, we're talking communication manager, session manager, system manager, AES, we're talking presence, all of those core servers that you need for everyday life is all in that server. So again, as we start embracing this stuff and we start embracing SIP and we start going down that path, we're seeing the need for more of these appliances and servers to do that. But in a virtual environment, it allows me to kind of make it all inclusive. And the thing I personally love about it, they're fairly simple to set up. I install a single, what Avaya calls it, a solution template, and I'm going to go ahead and put that into the system. I'm going to install that, and not only is it going to automatically install all of the various servers, but it's also going to do some of the connectivity in between those servers. So as part of the post-installation scripts, it automates some of those processes. It automatically builds a trunk between Communication Manager and Session Manager. Again, it wasn't necessarily difficult to do in the past, but it's one less step that I have to worry about. And as we're dealing with all of these different servers and platforms, there are more things that you have to connect virtually to link together for those integrations, and a lot of that's already done. So in this first platform, or this first version, that, like I said, would go up to about 1,000 users. If you were familiar with a collaboration server, like for example, if you were doing Flare and you were embracing the early adopter kit, that thing was using the collaboration server. Well, Avaya had said we're gonna increase that number to a larger scale. Well, this is that increase. This is that next version, that upgrade that allows me to go higher up. And so it has everything you need to support Flare, with the A175 tablets, so the whole Flare experience. Tie that all in together. Again, with Presence, AES. The next version of the midsize enterprise is going to have the Avaya Aura Session Border Controller built into it. So yet another virtual machine that you have access to that I don't need a separate server. At this point, it becomes licensing. And the reality is you don't even have to use all of those. you can get this solution and say, well, today I want to fire up Communication Manager to start. We'll know that I've got Session Manager behind the scenes that I can connect if I want to. So when I start tying all those together, I can load them up as I want, start using them. Midsize enterprise, it's a great way to keep everything tied together, make it simplistic, and you get to be on top of your game.
They call me Dr. Love. I've got the cure you're thinking of.
Yeah, DHCP. You know, it's been around for a long time. The IT departments use it forever to assign IP addresses to the devices or the clients, and traditionally it was PCs, you know, laptops, that kind of thing. Well, in the voice world, we do the exact same thing. So it becomes important for us to understand how DHCP works. As a minimum, a device that sits on a data network requires an IP address, a subnet mask, and a default gateway. Those are minimum. I can also, because of the dynamic host configuration protocol, I can provide some additional pieces of information with what we call option codes. They can tell me, hey, where's your CLANs that you want me to register to? Hey, you know, where's the HTTP server that I can get my scripts and my firmware updates? And I can push that out automatically through this. Now, the DHCP protocol as a whole is it's a dance between the device, in our case the phone, and that server. We think of it as I do a discover. Okay, so I say, hey, I'm looking for an IP address. We call that the discover portion of the dance. Then there is an offer made from the server back to the client that says, oh, okay, yeah, I'm a DHCP server. Here's some pieces of information that I have to offer. Are you interested in this? The client then says, yes, I do like that, and requests, so a DHCP request is the next part of the dance, and says, I would love to have that address. Well, finally, the DHCP server replies with an acknowledgement. So I've got a DHCP ACK. And that thing all of a sudden comes in and says, yep, you are allowed to use this address. It's officially yours. You can keep it for this amount of time. We call that a lease. And it does a great job of automatic. I can plug the phone in fresh out of the box. It'll get itself on the network. It'll provide all the information that it needs. It's a critical protocol. Understand it. It's really cool. DHCP.
They call me Dr. Love.
Yeah, PKI certificates, yes. In the last episode, we talked about SSL certificates and, you know, the idea that they're used to authenticate and encrypt the data going back and forth between devices. Well, the thing is, those kinds of certificates do not last forever. You know, think of it as a driver's license. It proves your identity. Well, every so often you have to go back and get your picture renewed, you know, and get all your information updated. Well, we have to do the same thing with these certificates. So Avaya actually has a batch of their PKI certificates about to expire in July 2011. Most of them on this round tend to be SIP related, but it means that you've got to do something. You have to take action or your SIP stuff is going to stop working. So it's something you need to go to support.avaya.com. Up at the top, it's all over the place that says, hey, these PKI certificates are about to expire. Here's what you need to do to get them updated. Okay, so definitely support.avaya.com. Go in there, get them updated. It's expiring July 2011. As promised, I've got two very special guests. As you know, Cross Telecom was acquired recently by Arrow Electronics, and some very cool parts of that, but their plan is to really merge us with another one of their acquisitions. You know them, Shared Technologies. So we get to merge together, and I have the two ringleaders of those organizations. With me, I've got Glenn Means, President of Shared Technologies,
Hi.
as well as Bob Coughlin, President of Cross Telecom. Guys, thank you for coming. This is pretty recent in the whole thing. I know you guys are busy, but thanks for taking the time to join us.
Excited to be here, Dave.
Awesome.
Love it.
So, you know, what I want to start out is, you know, talking about the why. Why is this interesting? Why, you know, why Arrow? Why Shared and Cross? Why Avaya? Why Nortel?
Well, we got acquired first, so maybe I'll start.
Great.
Arrow was looking to get into this business because they see UC as a opportunity, as an inflection in the marketplace, that things are really starting to change, and there's heavy penetration of that now, and they tend to look for places in the marketplace where they feel that there's an opportunity and change where they can have a major market presence. So the shared technologies became part of that, really as a beginning of looking at what's happened with Avaya acquiring Nortel. It's hard to believe, it's 15 months now that's gone by, and it's really starting to come together in the marketplace for the users, but the users are looking for a solution, whether they have a background that is from the CM side or the CS side. They're looking for an organization that can deal with all of their requirements. And I think that's where it really comes together with Cross, complementing Share.
Okay. You bring up a good point of with Avaya acquiring Nortel, I think a lot of those customers, let's face it, a lot of them have blended solutions, and let's face it, the going forward portfolio is a blend of both of the existing portfolios. And I think when you start talking about how you work with a business partner who's only Nortel, they now only know half the story. If you work with a business partner who only knows Avaya, they only know half the story. And what has been lacking, in my opinion, is a business partner who really is a master of both environments. So Bob, I'm curious on your take on how that comes together, and why is it interesting between not only Avaya and Nortel, but specifically Cross and Shared?
I think you've seen a lot of activity with some acquisitions in the space, but they've been small acquisitions. And as we all know, is regardless if you're incorporating a small acquisition or a large merger of two giants, it's still a lot of work, a lot of confusion, less impact on what they can do. But as you talk about the mergers of a Shared and a Cross, you're talking about a business that truly complements each other. We've made investments in areas around professional services and the different complements from a services engineering capability, but we chose not to make investments in services. Well, now you take a Shared Technologies that has the largest service workforce in the marketplace, now marriage that up with what Cross does. Now, we always went with the analogy before, competing against folks is we'd say we'd rather hire a remote genius than a local moron, but now we got a local genius with a local moron.
With a local genius.
With a local genius, that's right. I'm sorry, I was talking about the moron was you.
Yeah, I know,
I'm sorry.
that's how it usually works.
Right. But again, you look at it, $400 million of combined revenue, 1,500 employees, 800 field technicians, 9 million ports under management, with the largest engineering and professional services and application engineering team in the marketplace.
That's pretty amazing. So we talked about some of the things that again Cross gets to pick up on as part of the merger. What are you excited about?
Well, one, I'm excited just to be working with the Cross organization. When we first were a dealer with Avaya before the bankruptcy took place, we picked up the product in January of '09, and as we started to try to ramp up and figure out how to deal with the product, we actually partnered with Cross because we needed someone that we could work with that had applications expertise. It was new products to us. We trained some of our people, but it takes time. It's really rough sledding. But working with Cross, we became to learn that they had a commitment that really was very different than any other partner that was out there in the applications arena. That coupled with a culture that is I think in envy of many organizations out there. We're in a business, we don't make the products. Cross doesn't make it, Share doesn't make it. We distribute a solution for an end user, and we have cultures that are very employee centric so that they can be successful in enjoying what they do and having those customers have an experience they don't get anywhere else.
So that's important. We talk about Cross as an employee of Cross. I mean, we pride ourselves on our culture, and we always call it Geeks Paradise. We attract some of the absolute best talent in the industry. You guys have that same passion and commitment to culture.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's where I think the beginnings of our working together just were when we were first trying to understand two-tier distribution. Bob came in and he gave us a little lesson on it's You think it's hard, it's a lot harder than you think it is dealing. It's not the two-tier distribution, it's some of the complexities of picking up a new platform and dealing with a different organization and all the processes. And it was particularly helpful for us in those early days. But now it's a different relationship. Now we're together on this, and that's really going to make a difference.
So what does that mean to our customers? I mean, we have joint customers who have been very happy with us. I mean, what did they gain from all of this? We talked about the cultures, and we talked about the commitments and the passion. What do you guys see as the benefit of that?
So again, as we drive the future of where the technology is, the mix of the blue, the legacy Nortel, the mix of the red, the legacy of Avaya coming together, we now can leverage the skill sets, the geniuses from both organizations. And again, we don't have cultural issues to overcome, because here's an organization that's been recognized as one of the best places to work 5 years consecutively nationwide. It's powerful.
No, that's great. Hey, we're running out of time. I want to thank you guys for coming. It's been great talking with you, and I'm sure we'll see more from you in the future. So thanks again.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it.
You guys know I'm a huge fan of cloud computing. We've been talking about it for a long time. And Gartner, the Gartner Group does a report every year called the Gartner CIO Agenda, and it's done in January. And they talk about all the CIOs that they've surveyed and get what their business priorities are and some of the technologies that they intend to use to support those business priorities. And cloud computing was actually #1 and #2 over the last 2 years, depending on which survey you're looking at. So bottom line is that it's a big deal for businesses. Now, the question is, a lot of people kind of look at that and they assume cloud computing has to mean hosted. And the answer is, well, it could. That is certainly one option, is when you embrace that philosophy, you're decoupling the features from the use of that and how it's tied to hardware, which could mean virtualization, usually doesn't have to. But it's one of those things that you need to know that Avaya embraces fully with Aura. The whole platform is about that, taking feature servers, putting them in the cloud, all that kind of good stuff. But it does bring up that topic of, okay, well, what if I don't want to do hosted, but I want to do the cloud? Absolutely, that's actually the most common and most popular version of the cloud right now in businesses. Boy, people looking at hosted, you've got to be reading the news and seeing what's going on. There's been a lot of issues with hosting providers losing customers' data, those kind of things. So again, the idea of the private cloud tends to be very popular. And again, it's all Aura, and that's what we do. So, when we start looking at how that is, it brings up a good topic of what are we doing in the world of hosted, and what might I be interested in hosted? I'm not personally a fan of hosting voice, but that's my personal opinion. But it's one of these things that we can look at and see, well, why do people host? And it's usually a couple of different reasons. One is we're starting to take a look at what we're doing for cost containment. We're looking at, hey, this is commodity, this is really cheap. It's just dial tone. Anybody can do dial tone, and that's fact. Dial tone becomes easy nowadays, and maybe that's something you want to give and have somebody else own and manage and maintain for you, and that's certainly an option. As a guy who is big into applications and saying enterprise communications should be a driver for your business, not just dial tone, that doesn't fly for me, so that's not of interest. Now, my issue or my topic brings up another big one of maybe the complexity is now too big for you. You don't want to own, or maybe you want to own it, you want to control it, but you don't want to have to manage it. That's not hosted anymore. Now we're talking managed services. So you say, I'm going to own it, I'm going to control it, but I want someone else to manage it for me. So Cross is really big into that. Shared, as we merge together, they've got great managed services offerings to support the private cloud adventures that you might be going through. So hosted, cloud computing, it's all good. Check it out.
It's the final countdown.
They always say what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Well, not this time. We've got IAUG, Avaya's user group, happening in Vegas in a couple of weeks. And of course, I'm going to be there. Cross is going to be there. Shared is going to be there. In fact, Cross is doing 10 different breakout sessions. I'm doing 3. If you know Andrew Prokop, he's doing a handful of them. Tony Gallahue's doing those. The idea is what you learn in Vegas on this trip, you want to take home with you. You want to make your infrastructure better. You want to embrace technology better than what you did. we're going to be doing some pretty amazing things. Besides the breakout sessions, we're hosting another huge event. At our booth, we're going to have a very cool flare demo, kind of showing how collaboration, in our case, we're going to turn it into a little blackjack gambling exercise to see how you can embrace that and bring it all together. So we've got Cross, we've got Shared, we've got Meet the Leadership, Hear It From the Source, all kinds of really great stuff. Vegas, baby, check it out.